control. Gravity is all that I know. She's over me. She's over me. She caught me with her hypnotic dance. She holds me here with only a glance. She's over me. She's over me. Controlling me. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Wednesday edition of the Paranormal Portal. Hope you guys are doing great. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much for being patient as you waited for us. But as usual, Don and I got together, and we started yapping, and the next thing you know, it's like, whoa, look at the time. So I hope you all are ready, because we're going in. All right, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm just looking at the chat, and hey, Don, your music. I'm not alone here. I've got my good friend and co-host, Mr. Don Longbeard, here with me, who is forgetting to mute his laptop.
Oh my God!
And apparently he's forgotten how to.
Okay.
There we go. Are you good?
No.
I'm not hearing you.
Again.
Your microphone is not on, dude.
My microphone's not on. It's not my fault.
Welcome to the show, everybody. I can hear you.
Check. You can hear it? I can't hear. Oh, yeah. I'm glad I get a new headset.
Yeah, Don's headset is all nerfed, but
yeah, my dog nerfed it for me.
He's getting a new one, ladies and gentlemen. So we got that going for us. And hello, everybody. I see. I see somebody said something funny. I thought it was humorous. Now I gotta
Whack
find
Job
it.
Wednesday. That's Elaine for you. Hello, Bigfoot Odyssey. How are you?
I like what I like what Isaac said. Hello, everyone. Brent.
Hello, everyone.
So that means
Brent.
just me. I'm the only one that's hey, Isaac. Because I don't know if there's any other Brents in here, but it's great to see you guys. Oh, Bigfoot Odyssey's in the house. Yep. Again, ladies and gentlemen, go over and check it out. Great job. Carrie and his wife do a wonderful job putting together a top-notch show. I'm a big fan of it personally. I like what he's doing over there, and very, very informative, thoughtful, thought-provoking. Just a great job. So
Provoking.
Provoking.
That's what
No,
you
he's
said, provoking?
thought-provoking. Thought-provoking. Sorry. I'm just kind of drawling through it because, I'm trying to get that silky voice like Carrie has. That's an awesome. If you haven't heard the man narrate, he's just, oof. He's got it nailed. So welcome to the show, everybody. And tonight we're going to discuss cryptids and stuff like that because, we love us some cryptids in the portal for sure. You okay, Don?
Yeah, my headset's just killing me. I'm going to fix it here in a second. I got 500 mile an hour tape right here.
Oh, did you grab it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
it's killing me.
The Paranormal Portal studio has all kinds of uses for duct tape, let me tell you. I learned that from my experiences in the Midwest. Duct tape and baling wire, and you can basically fix anything.
Don't forget bacon grease.
We never use that in Minnesota, as far as I know. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you guys are all set and are ready to start this journey. I know Don's got some things he's really excited to share with you guys as far as some material he's pulled up. What do you got, Don?
I got a problem with my headset.
No, I know that. Well, that's only the beginning of that list.
Well, you
but...
know what? Yeah, let me start this here. Yeah, exactly. No, I said headset, not head.
So sorry,
Yeah,
it dropped
back that one
out.
up, buddy.
It dropped out on the set thing.
All right. Well, I don't need my headset tonight because I can hear you just fine.
Oh, really? Is it really not working that much?
It's really not working that well.
Oh, I'll dig out my other headset while you read this. Actually.
Oh, hey, no problem. Yeah.
All right.
So anyhow, I was going through my Facebook posts as always, and what I do is I find all the interesting stuff, or at least all the stuff I find interesting. If you do, that's great. That's just an added bonus for me. So anyhow, I was going through it, and I saw this red alert: giant plume of smoke appears on Mars, despite fire being unable to burn on the red planet. But all is not what it seems. And then I started looking at it, and oh, this is from October. So this is a little bit old. It's a new one to me, though, so I don't know if anybody else has seen it. But it says, astronomers have been watching this curious 900-mile cloud for more than a month. And this was more than a month. And, mine's just screw out. So let me get into this here real quick. So, bizarre image shows what looks like a giant plume of smoke stretching 900 miles over the surface of Mars, despite fire being impossible on the red planet. Astronomers have been watching the curious cloud for more than a month through pictures beamed back from a European probe circling the planet. It has remained in place since September 13th over...
That is so bizarre. I just can't imagine smoke.
Yeah, smoking in that's not good if you have smoke. But where you have smoke, you have
fire
to have,
generally.
Well, yeah, but you have to have air to have smoke and fire. So
yeah,
what the heck's going on there?
That's
but
crazy.
It says it's remained in place since September 13th over Arzia Mons, a volcano near the Martian equator. The European Space Agency said, but Arzia Mons has been extinct for around 50 million years, and no volcanic activity is producing the cloud. And fire is impossible because there's little oxygen in the thin atmosphere, which is mostly carbon dioxide to begin with. The ESA said the same orbiter spacecraft named Mars Express and its predecessor have spotted similar clouds at least 3 times before. I'm causing all kinds of problems tonight. The cloud structures all formed around the same time in the Martian year. And that's not a coincidence, scientists say. The cloud contains water ice and has been created by winds flowing along the side of the 12-mile-high, 150-mile-wide volcano. The feature is what scientists call an orographic or lee cloud, which forms downwind of an obstacle. Okay, so it's like working off the lee side. Oh, geez.
You are officially a part of the show now.
I can hear myself now. Now I know to stop yelling into the microphone. Hey, guys. How loud am I?
Yeah, that does help. That does help. I'm sorry. Go ahead. What's your story?
Scientists studying hundreds of images of the cloud have noticed it grows over the course of the morning, stretching westward along the equator for up to 930 miles. It may also be affected by particles still in the atmosphere from the massive dust storm that engulfed Mars earlier this year. Do you know that some of Mars's dust storms can last like 6 to 8 months?
Wow, it's almost like winter here. It just substitutes snow for dust, and you got winter.
Yeah, no doubt. In July, the Mars Express orbiter detected what could have been a massive underground lake of liquid water, raising hopes that it could sustain life. So that's the article there. So 930 foot long. Did it say foot? No, it's miles. 930 miles long of a dust cloud. So it's like a giant funnel cloud.
So it's not smoke at all?
No, it's not. It's not smoke. Yeah.
Oh, I feel cheated. I was not any fault of your own, of course, but that
Well,
that was kind of clickbait, if you ask me.
well, but the idea is though is it's like here we've got this, I just went dead again.
No, you're still
No,
fine.
I can't hear myself.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
How about me? Are you hearing me?
Now I can hear.
Okay. Well,
Now I can hear.
yeah, I think that little adapter is getting tweaked too.
Did
Anything
mine
that's
not fit on it?
no, yours has got that screw-in thing, so
Oh.
it wouldn't work.
Oh boy. Well, do this topless.
Are you really not going to use it? Okay.
Yeah, I can't hear anything.
I'll
It's
listen
not even
for you.
popping in and out.
That's weird. I don't know what's going on. It could be this thing now, this adapter.
Nope, still nothing.
Still nothing. Well, that's all I got. I don't have any more equipment to go
No,
through.
going topless.
That's all right. I wish you'd call it something else, though. I'm a little nervous sitting real close to you. Oh, my God.
It's just a dust devil, Jess says, but that's a hell of a dust devil.
A dust devil? Oh. Yeah, I don't know. But tonight we're going to mostly talk about cryptids, but that was an interesting piece of information. And we're just going to go through these odds and ends that we found over the net regarding cryptids. Now, if you're not familiar with it, cryptids are just basically any creature or being that is not validated by science. So biologists say that they're not real. Scientists says they're not real, but people continually have encounters with them. So it seems like they're real.
Yeah, there seems to be some kind of physical.
Yeah, now you don't have a microphone either. So.
What?
Yep, you're dead.
Oh my gosh.
It's the portal, ladies and gentlemen, and
Last night too, yeah.
yeah, I mean it's just very strange. Honest to God, ladies and gentlemen, I've been doing this for several years now, and I'm not bad around equipment. I generally can hold my own, but a lot of times I don't know why things don't work right in this episodes or any of these shows in the studio is what I'm trying to say. I did see we got a
check.
There you are.
Check.
You're back.
That's nice.
We got a call though, so
Oh.
we should get to this and see who's on the line
Sure.
wanting to talk to us. And on the line
I
is
can't
area
hear
code 949. Are you there? She fell asleep.
He's only been on for like 2 minutes.
I know he's yeah. It's just a light sleeper, I guess.
Aw.
Or
Hi, guys.
hi, how are you?
Ta-ta.
Ha ha.
Oh, it's Cha Cha. Hi.
Cha cha. Oh
I'm
my
just
God.
taking a nap. And I woke up.
Oh well. How are you tonight?
Hi. I was snoozing and decided to call in.
Okay.
And I just want to say hi.
Well, it's good to hear from you. How's things in your world?
Oh, just sitting on a rainbow.
Are you really?
Oh, that must be nice.
Great.
That's wild. Yeah. Eating a bowl of cereal then, are you?
It's that great.
Having Cheerios.
What's that?
Eating a bowl of cereal?
Yes. Yes.
Lucky Charms? I don't know.
Absolutely. Just
It was,
living it up.
well, good. I guess that's
Well,
wonderful.
I had to relive that whole snoring thing. I was in stitches listening to that.
I
And
know.
so I've been waiting for Wednesday because that's when I knew that the duos were going to be in. And I had to,
What sleeping
I
thing?
had to do it.
What have
And
I
both of
missed?
you.
Well, and what she's talking about is during Deb's show on Friday when we did the live psychic readings. I mean, some people call in and they're in the queue for a long time, and this person, whoever they were in the quew for 45 or 50
Oh, yeah,
minutes.
yeah.
And so we finally got to their call.
They
And
really fell asleep.
It was like it was just
Really? Wow. I miss
was
all the
so-
good stuff.
somebody actually fell asleep, and I tried to wake them, I really did, but they were down for the
Yeah.
count.
You went back. You went back a couple times too.
And they were
to
still
see, and they were still on hold,
Oh,
still
no.
sleeping.
I know.
That's
Whoever
horrible.
it is,
Yeah.
you need to come out. Who is
Jeez.
it?
No, I don't know who it was, and it didn't look like a number I recognized either. So I wouldn't publicly
I
embarrass
guess we'll
somebody.
never know.
I don't
Maybe
know.
not.
Maybe we'll never know. But thank you for helping us to relive that moment tonight.
Thank you for bringing
Yes,
it to my attention.
Yeah, Don missed all of that, so he didn't even know
Well-
anything about it.
Oh, okay. Well, you don't listen to the show?
When I'm I literally have no time for anything.
See, you hear him stammering.
I know you're very busy.
He's a busy guy.
Unfortunate but true.
All
Yeah.
right, I'll let you do your thing.
All right.
All
Thanks
right.
so much
We love you,
for
Cha-Cha.
entertaining me, and I love you guys too.
All right.
Have a good night.
We'll
You
talk.
too, bye.
We'll talk at you later, Cha-Cha Din Din.
That name just kills me, Cha-Cha. Can't believe she makes me say it all the time, too. She calls in, oh, hi, Cha-Cha. Oh. But anyway, so cryptids are basically these creatures that are unverified. They're they're not undocumented. I can't say that because there's lots, in many cases, such as in the cases of Bigfoot and dogmen and stuff, there's lots of eyewitness testimony to people seeing things that clearly are not human beings. They're not seeing people. They are seeing something so much bigger, doing things that defy explanation. I mean, these things can be 8 to 10 to, over, even larger feet tall, and displays of strength that go right into like the superhuman, kind of strength. In fact, I'm going to reference this on a Bigfoot Odyssey's last show. They were out at
Woodbooger Farms.
Woodbooger's Farms, and he had some tree breaks there, and these are like 8 and 10-inch trees that were twisted and snapped. So it wasn't like it just broke. It was like it was splintered. Mm-hmm. And you think about the kind of strength that would be required to not only break a tree that big, but to twist break it. So you're like spinning it and breaking it at the same time, and it ends up as this explosion of splinters. Mm-hmm. And that just defies imagination. So that's just one example of apparently some demonstrations of strength that are way, way, way beyond what a human being could do. It's up in the woods, so it wasn't like it was done by a piece of machinery. It's just really incredible. So it can be big things like that. It can also be smaller things like, some of those sightings of people in for instance, the sewer lines, those little lizard people that are running around. Mm-hmm. And if you haven't seen that, check it out on YouTube. You can find these videos of these remote control, they're almost like drones, but they drive into these sewer lines to inspect them, and they're these weird bipedal lizard things running around down in there. Mm-hmm. And it's really, really bizarre and creepy. But these are all creatures that allegedly don't exist. They don't exist, but apparently they do. And the part that really surprises me is the number of things out there that don't exist but really do. And Don, what do you have to say about cryptids in general?
I really like the idea of cryptids a lot more than ghosts and spirits and things like that, mm-hmm. because it's more of the tangible thing. There is the possibility of really getting like the empirical evidence, what you can see, smell, taste, touch. You probably don't want to probably taste too much of it, but you get my point. There's something more that you can grasp onto. Even aliens have more of an appeal to me than spirits and such. So, but I mean, there's so many different kinds of mutations out there, and reasons for mutations, and possibly missing links, and things that we haven't seen, and things that we haven't found yet in nature. That may be natural, or maybe, like I said, like a Chernobyl moose, without a head, or no neck,
It really didn't have any nose.
Yeah. So I mean, that's just the way it is. I really like the idea. I really grasp onto the idea. Being from the Pacific Northwest myself, I grew up with the stories of Patty and things like that, but I never really paid attention to them because, well, I've mentioned it before. I was never really encouraged. I don't feel I was ever encouraged to be a child when I was a child. So
sure.
But I mean, now I'm revisiting it. 40 years later, mm-hmm. and so it's I really like the idea. I really do. I really like the idea. I've listened to Wes, and I've listened to Duke, and I've listened to, I've seen, now I've been introduced to Bigfoot Odyssey, and, and all these stations and channels that we've been, paying attention to. And, I'm just really liking, the idea that there's something more out there, whether it be Bigfoot or dogmen. I prefer not dogmen. Let me get that out of the way. But I mean, Thunderbirds and, all these cryptids that pop up, ahools,
Yeah.
I really like the idea because it's very possible because of our natural history.
Right. Now, before we go any further, I want to have everybody have a moment of silence for Carl. He's in the chat room. He says, "Wish me luck. When I leave work tonight, I need to go someplace scarier than a haunted house." Walmart.
Actually, Carl, I'm right there with you because I have to stop by Walmart on my way home after the show. So I'll be thinking of you.
That is so scary. I went there earlier today, and yeah, I made it. That's all I can say is I made it, and I'm hoping you have the luck of the Irish on that one.
It's best to go late, though.
It is.
That's
so
that
funny.
way you get all the Walmartians and all the regular people are out of there.
Is that a saying? Walmartians?
Yeah,
I
the
love it.
Walmartians. Yeah, it's like Washingtonians.
Oh, well, there's that. But that's funny. Yeah, Walmart is always an adventure. Today there was actually people smiling there. So
Oh, no way.
Yeah, I thought there must
Were
be
they giving away free stuff?
No, there was. I was afraid that maybe there was a gas leak somewhere. But
Do not go in there.
or there are people licking the ice cream, getting all happy. I don't know what the hell's going on. Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, cryptids are an amazing topic of discussion. Now, I will say this: there are some cryptids out there that I just can't get my head around, and
Yeah.
I appreciate that people are seeing something that they don't understand,
Right.
And they're seeing, they're sure that what they're seeing is what they describe. But when you hear of things like, and I brought it up before, but things like the bat squatch.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially, a bat squatch it's a
It's a
Sasquatch, but it's got bat wings and somehow flies around. And my point of contention is that, if Sasquatch weighs 800, 1,000 plus pounds, throwing a pair of bat wings on it is not going to give it flight. I mean, that's too much meat to get off the ground with bat wings. I'm sorry. It's just, they better be working like hummingbirds or something.
Yeah, they got to eat a lot, though.
I mean, you know what I'm saying, though? It's just how do you get that much body off the ground? I mean,
Well, and the cow flew over the moon.
well, there's that story, but I don't think that.
You don't think that's based on reality?
No, I'm thinking that one might be an embellishment.
Oh, damn it.
But things like a bat squatch, for me personally, I just can't get my head there. It's like I don't understand what people are seeing, and maybe the fear is making them see something just a little different than what was actually there. But
Right.
yeah, I don't understand getting that much body off of ground. I mean,
Takes a jumbo jet to get me off the ground.
well, that's what I was just going to say. I mean, I know how much work it is to get out of this chair all the time, and putting wings on me is not going to do a lot of good.
That's like, yeah, rolling out of bed is one thing. Getting off the floor is another.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but but the claims come in that people are seeing things like this,
Right.
And I really don't know what to do with those. But then again, I haven't seen it, and I'm just saying I'm not saying that it can't be possible. What I'm saying is that I have to intellectualize things up to a certain level. I don't have to be able to scientifically break them down, but
Right.
I just have to at least get over some hurdles in my mind before I can really embrace that idea. But people are obviously seeing something that they believe is a Sasquatch with wings that flies. Maybe they are, and I don't pretend to understand those physics. So that one's beyond me. So there's a lot of claims going on out there, and granted, anything with the paranormal, you have a lot of different people involved in the paranormal and different ideas of the paranormal,
Right.
and different levels of acceptance of the paranormal.
Right.
So for whatever it's worth, but we're going to cover a few of these And a lot of these are just little snippets of people bumping into something.
Figuratively.
Yeah. Well, sometimes very specifically, literally, but a lot of times figuratively. But all right. So oh my God, microprint. I was just talking to the Mrs. Portal today, and I was like, I need new glasses. Although I'm reading font here that looks like it belongs in a Bible somewhere. It's so small. It's like, what? All right. So this one was 1973. I was 9 years old, and I lived on a big pig farm. I got on a motorcycle for Christmas, and in North Carolina, the temperature can be in the 70s in December, and my dad always told me not to go down a certain right away, not to go down a certain right away. I don't know what that means. So as soon as I could, I went down that right away. Nothing happened for a few months, but around April, I'd gotten used to riding that path, and still nothing strange happened. But at the end of April, beginning of May, I started feeling like something was watching me. I started hearing things in the woods, and I started seeing some tree limbs in the path. And one day I went down the path, and I stopped at the bottom, and I heard something heavy coming through the woods. I looked up and saw a big creature walk across the path. It was on 2 feet, and it turned and looked at me, and then it was gone. I gunned my bike and got the hell out of there, and I didn't tell anyone about this for 40 years. Then a couple of years ago, I mentioned it to my oldest brother, and he told me he saw it when he was a kid. And that's why Dad said don't go down that right away. And then I mentioned to one of my sisters, and she said that she had heard our dad talk about it and how he had to start taking a gun whenever he went to feed the pigs.
Wow.
I always wondered why my dad took a gun all the time while we were on our own land. Now I would love to see it again. So that's kind of interesting. So now, as I'm reading these kind of stories, they seem to demonstrate little nuggets. And the nugget I'm taking from this story, and it's something I've wondered about quite a bit, but I believe that they're probably seeing a Sasquatch or something of the nature of Bigfoot. What it seems to demonstrate is that they are seasonally maybe moving around, like they're semi-migratory. And I've thought about that a lot through the years, that I think they come and go in certain areas, but they have a normal circuit, if you will, that maybe they travel throughout the year. I don't believe they hibernate because there's so many reports of activity during the winter that it's not an issue of hibernation, but I think they probably have a circuit of areas that they visit throughout the year, and it could be due to things like, there are some areas they're in where the berries come out a certain time of year. Some areas they're in where there's more of a collection of ungulates and stuff to feed on, et cetera, et cetera. But I think they're omnivores, and they probably travel this circuit as a means to gain what they need from their diets and stuff. So I think that there's really something to that. And as you heard in this narrative, the person started out in December, and it wasn't until April, beginning of May, that they started to feel creepy, that creepy feeling. So during that period of time is when that something must be in that area, or those some things. What do you think about that, Don? Do you think they might move around?
We've talked about that several times, about, especially when we looked at this, hide that we found over here, because they haven't come back, or they haven't been in the area. I haven't seen any. I've gone up there a couple times and haven't seen any new, structures or anything like that.
Right.
So, it's very possible. I think it's I think they are travelers. I think they are nomads to some point. Now, there might be some groups or troops or whatever they're called, families that don't, move too far. I imagine like in the Southwest or whatnot, because everything migrates south anyhow during the winter. So they maybe it's just the northern Squatches that do it. Who knows?
Sure. But, well, that's true.
it makes sense to me. I mean, because, the nomadic tribes all through the world follow their food source, and that's what you need to do. As long as they're not, eating the available humans, I'm okay. I was like, I don't taste good. I don't care if you put barbecue sauce on me.
Yeah. Well, in like stories like Momo out of Missouri, that one was interesting because there was like a rash of animals missing, like pets.
Yeah.
Like people's dogs were going missing everywhere. And so it was like it found this other food source for some reason. And I can only assume that, either it was kind of on its own, maybe for the first time or something, but it started going after the low hanging fruit. And that's often wearing collars and barking in people's yards. And so, but there's a lot of stories of them going after that. But I think that for an animal that large or a being that large, I can't say that they're animals. I think that they're certainly of a higher order than that. And, I think that the First Nations have it right as they identify them as another people. But obviously they're quite a bit different from us, but it has to probably take quite a range because the kind of grounds that they live in seem to be really rougher than, the prime areas where the people are. So I think they have to probably have an extended range to travel in order to meet their dietary needs throughout a year. But I think that story is really interesting, and it wouldn't surprise me even a little that were the case. But I think that's, I came upon, back where I was from in Minnesota, of course I've shared my own stories, but the one story that really sticks out to me that makes me feel like they were migratory even there was the fact that the area that I discovered, or I've not discovered, but I encountered what I believe was a Sasquatch. Again, I never did face it, but it was right behind me, growling and vibrating me, terrified me. And at the time, being younger, I had no idea what it could be. And it wasn't until, years and years and years later when I discovered that, Bigfoot wasn't just in the Pacific Northwest. And then I started connecting the dots and found, things in that woodland area that would match what people find.
Right.
But my brother is a bow hunter, and he was hunting in the land probably about 3 or 4 miles as the crow flies away from there, from where I had my close encounter. And he had shot a deer, and he said he got it really good, and it was really, dumping a huge blood trail. And for those of you that are squeamish around hunting and ideas like that, I do apologize, but it's just a part of our culture. So, and it certainly helps to tell the story. But he got it good, and there was a huge blood trail, and he waited for his friend. His friend came, and they both went together and followed this blood trail. And they followed it for the better part of several hundred yards through a lot of thick brush. And when they finally the blood trail ended, and he said, there was no way that deer had anything left to bleed. With the amount of fluid that was left behind.
Right.
I mean, it was just had to have been done, but there was no carcass or anything. And it was in really scrubby land. There was no gut pile where some other hunter came across it and dressed it out and took it out. And that's, even dressed, it's about a, 60 to 80 pound, piece of animal or more. I don't know what a field dressed Minnesota deer would be, but it would probably be closer to the 100-pound mark because they're big. They're all, farming areas around there. They're pretty well fed. There was no animal, no sign of anybody being there. So it just stopped. And I was thinking, wow, that totally fits the narrative a lot of people share, that have lost prey in these woodland areas where the Sasquatch, Bigfoot are reported to be. And I really think that, the hunting draws them out. I don't think they're too intimidated by us being in the woods, but we got another call, so let's get to this one and see what's going on. This is area code 432. You're on the air.
Hey, what's up, guys? Kerry, Bigfoot Odyssey. How y'all doing?
Hey, brother. How you doing?
Well.
Great to hear from you.
No, we're great, man. I just, we really appreciate you guys. You gave us a glowing review, and, we shot you right back tonight on the research report. What you were talking about, the deer, I've had that exact same thing happen to me, except, this was before I knew anything was going on. I had probably lost 3 before this, but this was a really nice buck, a nice 8-point. I mean, if you're a hunter, it makes you sick.
Yeah.
But I heard this guy crash. I mean, he went down. I shot him. He was kind of close
Uh-huh.
with a 7 mag. I mean, that's a large caliber rifle.
That's a good one.
This thing he goes down. I actually heard him go down, but it was so early, and I was greedy that I sat there and waited for another one. So about an hour and a half goes by. By the time I get down, I find lung blood. I mean, it's everywhere.
Uh-huh.
And I find where the deer crashed. But I mean, it's in a bottom where there's a lot of deciduous trees, and I mean, constant leaves. You wouldn't, even if you were looking for tracks, you'd never find one.
Sure.
But the deer's gone, and there's no blood bleeding anywhere else. And I mean, this was, like I said, before I knew anything. But, you know, come to find out, this area is covered in Sasquatch. So I can relate totally.
So now let me ask you, as long as I got you on the phone, what do you think? Do you think that they are like migratory to a degree, or that they have a really extended range that they travel throughout the year?
I think they'd have to be, Brent. I think they would have to be, just because you think if they stayed in one area the whole time, they're going to exhaust the resources pretty quick.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just what I think. Who knows? I've got a guy telling me now that Sasquatch doesn't eat meat. So how anybody could possibly know that, I don't know. How do you know what Sasquatch doesn't do?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, as far as
examining scat.
that's
right.
That's hard to say, but it's
So
incredible.
I don't know.
The amount of claims that people have for the behaviors that are so dialed in are, you know, you're right. It's really hard to get your head around those, because who really knows, and who can really say, unless you've had the opportunity to closely study these things. This is all speculation, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I can only go by what I've experienced and what I've seen.
Mm-hmm.
I know what I saw. I know it was real. I know what I experienced in the area for 7 years that I hunted this place. And I can attribute every single one of those things to these creatures. It's hard to explain otherwise.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Now, that being said, if you would have told me it was Sasquatch before I saw one, I laughed at you.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a double-edged sword, and I understand anybody that's skeptical about it, absolutely, especially someone that doesn't do, you know, an ounce of due diligence. They just come in and give their 2 cents. So I get it.
Right. Hey, Carrie, when you said you've lost 3, but specifically this one stuck out to you, I have to ask this question, you know, of everybody. Did you look up in the trees? Because, you know, we as humans there's something that keeps us from looking up above us. And part of it is because we might be scared something's going to jump on us, like a cougar, or, you know, mountain lion, whatever you want to call them, you know, whatever. But I mean, did you look up? Because there have been reports of, you know, we know that big cats hang their food. We know that, you know, birds hang their food. It's quite possible Bigfoot, Sasquatches hang their food. Did you look up?
Yeah, no, I didn't look up. You know, what I did do was, for days after, was look for buzzards.
Yeah.
Because, you know, in my mind,
Yeah.
somehow this miracle, this buck, after being shot in the lungs, got up and ran off somewhere else. I looked for all day.
Right.
So what I did do was look for buzzards for days and days, and never saw any. There's not a doubt in my mind now what happened there.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, even though I didn't see what happened to it,
Right.
I know what was there.
Mm-hmm.
And I know they got my deer. So
Oh, that's intense. Now,
I believe they ate it too. So
right. Yeah. They didn't
just for the record.
they weren't just composting with it then.
Right. I don't think it was a wear the skin type of situation. You know what I'm saying?
Now, can I ask you, before this came into your sphere of awareness, you were just completely skeptical, but how hard was it to wrap your head around all this when it came crashing into your life?
Well, I never went back in the woods again.
Oh,
Not for 10 years.
See that we've heard that several times too.
yeah. You know, that's funny, because when I had the close encounter, and I never could turn around to look, because I was sure whatever was behind me was what was going to kill me, and I didn't want to see what it looked like before I died. I mean, it was that terrifying, but I didn't go back in the woods for several years following that either. Mm-hmm. And it took a long time. And that seems to be a common thread in this people's having encounters, is that kind of shock.
Yeah, the first time I went back to the woods at all was to actually, I was having a lot of problems. I guess you could call it PTSD. I don't like
Sure.
calling it that just
Sure.
because I don't like to disrespect anyone that's been in the military, because
Gotcha.
I wasn't.
Right.
But apparently that's what it was. A lot of anxiety from it. I could just be driving down the road and look into the woods and get that washed over feeling. But I have nightmares, and my wife, God love her, Linda, pushed me to go and face it. And I tried to research, and I researched for about 3 weeks, and I just couldn't do it. I wasn't really a fear thing as much as it was, and just so uncomfortable. You just couldn't drive a nail up my butt the whole time I was out there. And I didn't like it. So she actually talked us into doing, the show that we do now, the way we do it. We don't go look for Bigfoot. We just talk to the people that do or have those experiences. So it's ended up being a good thing. We've gotten so many friends and relationships out of it, but at the time I would have told you, it's the worst thing that ever happened to me ever. But that's what it took for me to get back in the woods, and I don't go back unless I've got the viewfinder to my eye. That's the only time I'm going.
I don't blame you.
And I'm going to be armed.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah,
Absolutely.
definitely.
No, that's pretty intense, and I agree with you.
Absolutely.
It changes the reality for sure.
Absolutely. Hey, I appreciate you guys taking my call. I just wanted to say thank you, Brent, for the glowing review you gave us yesterday, and we definitely had to shoot you guys back. Like I said, I wasn't even a subscriber, man. I just caught your guys' show on suggested videos every now and then.
Wow.
And
We're actually having suggested
videos. To a lot of people.
Awesome.
Brian Duke Sullivan's, his show was the same way. I just catch it every now and then, and I finally just started subscribing to people. But we do appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. I'll be catching all your shows now.
Well, thank you, brother, and likewise, thanks for doing what you guys are doing, because you're honest to God, you guys are raising the bar and really putting out a top-notch show. It's no kidding, one that I enjoy watching start to finish every time. So I can't say I've watched all your shows, but every one of them I watched, I'm just glued until it's done. So you guys are doing it right, brother.
They're not all great. Trust me, it's gotten to that point. It's evolved quite a bit, but we do appreciate it very much. You and Don, you guys are
awesome.
Are great. Thanks so much. Hey,
anytime.
I'm gonna get out of here.
All right, brother. Thanks for calling in. You. See you now.
All right, bud. Bye.
That's awesome. Very cool. That's always fun to meet some of our people out there.
Those are our peers.
Yeah, absolutely. And really, honest to God, people. I'm not blowing smoke because I really wouldn't. I believe in having integrity in my life. Right. I really do.
Yep.
And if a show sucked, I would never encourage people to go check it out, because then I'd look like an idiot. But honest to God, if you watch Bigfoot Odyssey, they do a phenomenal job, just a really top-notch job. So, but cool. Yeah, that was nice. It was, and it's interesting. He had the same kind of experiences that my brother had.
Yeah.
And my brother to this day won't acknowledge that could be a possibility.
Right.
But I mentioned it to him that I use it on my show, that story on my show. He's like, "Oh, really?"
Well, yeah, sure. Why not?
Well, because he's just one of those guys that he's got his 3 dimensions, the 4 walls, and life is just what he knows it is, and that's where he's happy. So,
well, that's okay.
More power to him.
But there a lot of people, a lot of people have called in and shared stories, and they're like, "Yeah, I don't go into the woods anymore." Even Duke tells the story about when he first encountered them way back when he was a kid, and went down the hill and then up and over the rise, and and he said he didn't go back for a while either.
Yeah.
And so it seems to really take a lot out of some people, and takes a while to get them back out there. Now, if you go back out, that's awesome. If you decide not to, hey, you know what? If you're still in the community, you're still awesome, because you're still sharing everything and you're learning more through it. Unfortunately, I'm not one of these experiencers. You know, I'm
Yet.
Well, yeah, yet. We've been out traipsing around a couple places here in Idaho, which, you know, have been known to have Squatch, you know, activity and such like that. And maybe someday I'll bump into something and you can just look at me and go, "I told you so."
Well, no, I wouldn't do that. You know,
Yes,
I
you
really
should.
wouldn't. I wouldn't because I, you know, it takes a while to really grab onto something like that. Like my idea of bat squatch. It's like,
Right,
you know,
right.
until one lands in front of me, I'm going to be like, you know, I don't know how to handle that.
Like bat
But,
Squatch.
yeah.
You know, I told you that story the other night. Like 2 weeks ago, I was laying in bed and I had my window open and I was asleep and I was woke up by that screechy noise and I thought it may have been like a flock of bats, but but it affected me. It made me dizzy and nauseous and off center.
Yeah.
And so-
and honestly, you know, bats don't sound like that except on Scooby Doo. You know,
Well,
bats
no,
are
I-
like that. That's like all.
No, they do more than just, you know, a chittering, ticking. They do have a kind of a screech kind of thing. But it was
never
just
heard that.
huge. It was just like 1,000 of them, you know. So maybe we were talking about bat squatch then too.
Yeah.
Maybe it was a bat squatch that flew by my window and hit me with infrasound. I'm laughing because
Yeah.
I'm laughing because I think it would be the experience of being thrown off kilter by this noise, and that's what it was. I was dizzy, I was nauseous. It made me, you know, but I was still coherent.
Sure.
You know, but I laugh because it's weird, but you know, what if it was something more than just, you know, the screeching of bats, you know?
Well, it sounds like it was. I don't pretend to be a biologist and can tell you what everything sounds like.
A robin squatch. not at 3:00 in the morning.
I don't know. A robin squatch. Yeah, I don't know, but I mean, it sounds like whatever you heard. Again, that's
it
the
was
weirdness
crazy.
of the paranormal, though, because, you know, granted, it could be something just mundane. But
Yeah,
it was
it
a
could.
weird.
A flock
it
of
was
geese.
well, yeah. You know what they sound like, though.
That's true. Hey, check out the honkers.
Right. Don, you're gonna end up with mic trouble real quick.
I
again.
have been having troubles all night.
Well, then it'll sound natural. I have a mute button. I'm not afraid to use it. But yeah, I don't know. It's craziness. The idea that we are learning more and more and more that we really don't know what the hell's going on in this world. Yeah, and that's the part that I think really, you know, cooks my bacon the most.
Right.
Is that we really don't know very much, and we have this arrogance about us that says, "Well, this is what's out there, and this ain't what's out there," and
There ain't
that's
no
it.
more to it than that.
Right. It's just this coloring book, stay in the lines kind of mentality. But I think over and over and over, life has a tendency to prove us wrong. But I got another one here, and this one is it has to do with skunk ape and a Sasquatch. So it sounds like two different locations, one in Florida and one in Michigan. But
Florida man.
absolutely. So, well, to begin, I get my Native American blood from my mom's side. Her mom was full-blooded Chippewa. And although they didn't talk much about it, so I sought out the elders when I was in my early 20s. And when I was about 12 years old, Mom and Dad got divorced, and we moved to Florida where my mom's half-sister lived. While visiting my aunt, Caroline, who lived in a little town called Osprey, 15 miles south of Sarasota, which is on the western coast of Florida south of Tampa, is where I saw a skunk ape. Mom and my aunt were talking, so I decided to take a walk as I love nature. And I headed for a wooded area, and I had to cross a cow pasture to get to the woods. And about halfway across the pasture is where I saw this hairy man-like creature standing next to a palmetto bush, just staring at me. And that's all I can remember, because the next thing I know, I'm walking on the street in front of my aunt's house, and I never told anyone until years later.
Mm-hmm.
Again, in my 20s, at my dad's house in Michigan, there was a summer of strange events. Something was breathing outside my window so loud, it woke me out of a sound sleep. My stepmom confided in me that she saw a tall, hairy man run across the backyard at night. My dad had two different events where something was making a high-pitched noise and slapped the side of the trailer. My uncle, who lived across the street, said One night he heard what sounded like 2 grown men wrestling in the woods behind his house. Ooh, turf war.
Good God.
Yeah, that would be scary. God, could you imagine? I'm mentally, I'm thinking back to, the Bigfoot Odyssey showing the picture of that tree that was just splintered. I mean, that's the strength they would wrestle with.
Right.
Oy. And during this time, one of the elders had asked my dad if he and a couple of friends could build a sweat lodge on my dad's 15 acres. My dad said yes, so they came out to do the ceremony, and it was a year later, and they hadn't built the lodge. So I went to the elders and asked if something was wrong. One of them said it didn't feel right. I decided to tell them about the weird experiences in which had stopped after they did ceremony on my dad's land. And they said that it was Unchi, which meant Bigfoot. Unchi, Unchee. They explained he shows up when things are out of balance to remind people to live in a good way, to restore balance. Later, I learned about putting down tobacco when entering the woods in their territory and asking permission to pass through. And it is said they will guide you and protect you, although you will not know that they are there usually. Bigfoot is also known as Kichisabe, which is taught that they brought honesty to the people. Wow, that's cool. And I love that background information too. I think that, the First Nations really, they have so much wisdom, so much knowledge of our natural world. And, quite honestly, these were part of their entire, totem of animals.
Right.
They're not, fantastical creatures. They were considered another tribe. So a lot of balance and goodness, I guess. Excuse me, I had to clear my throat. So that's a pretty cool story. Again, just 2 encounters, nothing over the top, nothing scary, really. Although that first one, I kind of wondered what was going on. Was he infrasounded there? Because he said he was walking through the pasture, looked over, saw the Bigfoot by the palmetto bush, and the next thing he knew, he was walking on the street back to his house.
Yeah, just kind of lost some time there, eh?
Yeah, he was zapped for
Was
sure.
he probed?
Oh, Don.
What?
I don't know.
You lose time when you do that kind of thing, apparently. I don't know. I don't know if I know.
I don't think you should probably continue much further with that one. Let's let that die. All right. So the next one is, it says, I grew up on 32 acres of woods in the Midwest. And when I was in 6th grade, I looked out the living room window and saw a white reflection. My mom grabbed a flashlight and looked out the window, and she could see some white animal crawling around on the ground in the clearing by our house. It was approximately raccoon-sized, but white, and apparently able to get 3 feet up to the window. The next morning before sunset, I was letting my dog outside, and he ran to the garage door and began barking and growling, completely out of character for him. I stepped around the door frame and saw an approximately 5-foot-tall, pale being with 2 huge glowing eyes and some form of round, glowing item where a mouth or neck might be. My 6th grade self screamed, turned, and ran back inside, leaving my mom and dog out to fend for themselves. Nice. By the time my mom figured out what had happened and I calmed down enough to come back out, the thing was gone. To this day, I'm terrified of the woods surrounding the house at night. And when I visit, I leave before sunset or have someone walk me to my car. And it has been over 15 years, and I would also like to add that I don't believe in aliens or ghosts or anything, but I have no clue what these things were. So not incredibly huge, but yeah, that's really, really weird.
It's a rake.
That crossed my mind, but it sounds like it was smaller than a normal rake.
Well, it may have been juvenile rake.
I suppose they probably have to have babies too, right?
Well, you never know, unless they're, like has been alluded to in past episodes, unless they are from some kind of a Dr. Moreau kind of situation, lab created, so.
Yeah, you never know. I mean, there's always those stories floating around out there, and that's another thing that's hard for me to get my head around. And it's not that I don't believe there's been some experimentation done. History is full of examples of people trying to create a new kind of people,
Right.
in order to fight wars and stuff like that. Of course, the Nazi Germany tried to do it. Soviet Union tried to do it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we're no saints in that whole mix. That somebody on our team just probably decided to do it or tried to do it.
Mixing different types of DNA
Right.
together. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And so, I mean, now, of course, we have the technology, I'm sure, to do those kind of
We
things.
can rebuild him.
Right. Whereas before it was just like, well, that didn't take. Let's try something else.
Let's
they
just throw it outside and let it wander
Yeah.
around a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. It's like it's like a paint job. You just throw paint on it and hoping it sticks. But now there's science that can definitely help splice genes and do things like that. So it's kind of bizarre, very bizarre. But these are really cool stories.
Those are great stories.
Okay, this one's coming out of West Virginia. And this one sounds really cool. Now, this sounds like, well, let me read it and we'll come to conclusions afterwards. Because I haven't read this yet. I don't know what it's going to say. What's funny?
Nunker Road just passed through my head.
Oh, jeez. All right. So it says late the other night around midnight, I was driving home through the back roads as usual, and I approached a slow speed turn and and felt an urge to slow myself. Sometimes it's almost like I'm dyslexic. It's like I know that's felt, but I kept saying left. My head transposed those letters, and I felt the urge to slow myself more than normal. And as the headlights, rounded the corner to a large dark figure broke from the wood line and strode across the road on all four legs. And as it crossed the lights, I caught a prolonged look at a large, wolf-like creature with thick, coarse, black, patchy hair. It turned its head, and its large yellow eyes resembled the moon, which had been vibrant and bright all weekend. The shoulders stood approximately 4 to 5 feet tall. Wow, on all fours it's at 5 feet?
Wow.
Its body was as long as the lane, which was in, not including head or tail.
That's huge.
Its body was as long as the lane, which I was in, not including the head or tail. So actually the head and tail were made it longer. The encounter has left me physically and mentally shaken. I've never seen anything like it with my own eyes. I spent a lot of time outdoors and in the woods, and wolves aren't native to our area. The closest zoo is a few hours away, and no local wolf dog breeders. Wow, that's crazy. So is it a dogman down on all fours? What do you think, Don?
Well, but the body, the length of the spine from shoulder to hip was as long as the lane is wide.
Right.
So your car is what? 8 foot wide? Some cars 8 foot wide, average maybe 7 foot. And then of course your lane is actually a little wider than that. So that's huge.
That's huge. But then again, there's reports of 9 foot dogmen.
That's true.
They're not common. I think most often they're in the 7-8 foot range, from what I understand. But
that was in West Virginia, huh?
That was in West Virginia. Yep. The next one is, now these are ones that I find very curious, and this has to do with a pterosaur witness. Now it's coming out of India, so I don't know how the language is going to be. I guess it looks pretty good. So this happened a few years ago, perhaps 5. My boyfriend and I were visiting. There's one of those words. A
place in India.
It's a bird sanctuary near Mysore in South India. I'm sorry, I just can't even try to brutalize that name. So I'm just going to say a bird sanctuary. And an absolutely beautiful place, which the Kaveri River flows lazily amongst small, heavily forested islets. That's islets, right? The trees crowded with nests and painted storks, spoonbills, cranes, and dozens of other species. Freshwater crocodiles lurk in the dark waters, all too eager to snap up the unwary birds in an unfortunate fledgling. And here the trees are not only home to the birds, but also big flying foxes, the India fruit bat. And it was here we saw it, while gently being rowed around in a small wooden boat. At first we thought it was a fruit bat, Although they tend to roost during the day, there were still the odd ones flaunting convention and wheeling around in broad daylight. And the first thing we noticed was its size. I know that India fruit bats are large, very large, but this dwarfed them. We were close with nothing obscuring our vision, probably about 50 meters away over the open water. And it was at least 4 times bigger than the large fruit bats, and with about a 7 meter, about 20-foot wingspan.
Wow.
And it glided while they flapped. It swooped down to the water and on the wing plucked a 50 to 70 centimeter, about 2-foot fish effortlessly out of the water, carrying it off, thrashing in one claw. Its body was smooth, not furry, and a mixture of grays, whereas the bats are clearly very dark brown to black. As it flew off, its silhouette was clearly not that of a bat. The anatomy is totally different. This was not a flying fox, I'm sure of it. I've seen many flying foxes up close, and this was huge and distinctly different. Also, fruit bats are vegetarian, eating, fruit and not fish. I've been an avid studier of nature for years, and I am aware that you get fishing bats, but not only are they small, but there are no fishing bats in India. It was not a bird of prey. The taut, T-A-U-T membranous skin of the wings clearly stretched out between the bones of its fingers. The India flying fox is the largest species of bat in the world, and this was bigger, much bigger, and they were practically side by side for comparison. So this person swears they saw some kind of pterosaur or pterodactyl or something. They're hard to understand. It's hard to understand. Do I believe that person is telling the truth? I guess it's possible. How is that happening and we're not finding like old dead ones and bones and things? Because if these are around with Bigfoot and most other cryptids that we believe operate on a near human intelligence, we know that they work avidly to avoid us. I mean, they just do. But in things like a bird or bird-like creature, it's got to be mostly just concerned with, hey, where do I get food? And where can I rest comfortably? I mean, that's about all as far as its, major instincts. So it's not going to think, hey, I'm not feeling real good. I should fly far away from where these people might find me. So it's not like trying to, it may be thinking that it needs to avoid people, but you know what I mean? Am I making sense here?
Well, yeah. But here's the thing. Well, yes, yeah, absolutely. Because we believe that Bigfoot take their dead and go bury them or entomb them somewhere where is not to be found.
Sure.
And dogmen, who knows what they do? They might just eat them. Who knows?
Right.
So what's to say that if one of these flying cryptids, like cats know when they're going to die. They basically know it's time for me to go. I'm exiting the world.
Sure.
And if they can, they will wander off and go die somewhere by themselves. So that's their natural instinct, is to just go off and die somewhere if they know they're going to.
Right.
So, what's to say that they're not finding a secluded cave on, Mount Everest that hasn't been, found or whatever, or even water burials. Who knows? I mean, I'm just spitballing here. But, also we've heard, though, that a lot of these some of these flying cryptids may be interdimensional. So we may not be seeing them because they can bend space, time, open a dimensional rift. So if they decide that they need to exit quickly, they can do it. Or maybe it's done on accident. They fly through them. Maybe they're more prone to finding these tears in space and time, dimension, whatever that is. And it's somehow like they're attracted to them. Who knows? Like a bug light,
Right.
So, that's one thing I can get with, not necessarily the dimensional thing, but, the whole idea that they have a process for their life and birth and death.
Right.
So.
It may be. I mean, you're right. Maybe it's perhaps if they are if they take their origin from a different dimension, they can see those things,
Right.
those weird portals opening and closing, and perhaps they just know to fly through them. But it doesn't seem like an animal that would make some higher order decisions or planning, that would require what we, would consider almost human intelligence.
Well, yeah, but think about salmon. They every like 7 years they return to where they are from. Salmon are saltwater or freshwater. They can go anywhere they want for the most part. And a lot of salmon go out to sea and then come back 7-8 years later and they spawn and die.
Yep.
And they do it naturally. We know that, the stupid Canadian geese land next to our our beautiful lake and poop all over everything. But that's because they're Canadian geese. They need to go back north. They have these natural instincts to do these things.
Right.
So I'm wondering if that's part of their natural instinct is to go die somewhere where they can't be found or where they feel safe there to expire, whatever.
Maybe, but you'd think that somebody somewhere would have stumbled on a corpse if there is a breeding population around.
Well,
and then there's just accidental deaths or things like that or disease.
Yeah, but see if they're accidental deaths and somebody stumbles across it, everybody goes, "No, that's not possible. You're a crackpot."
Well, if you got a body though, then if you got a body, that's
fake.
the whole game changer.
But now wait a minute. What about that guy, the dog trainer, Peter something? That's always he's got a frozen squatch that his father killed back in the 50s.
Oh,
he's got a body.
That's bunk.
Well,
that's bunk. Even
that's my point.
Well, no, I mean
that's
it is though.
Point.
It's been
that's like the
debunked.
Minnesota Iceman.
Yeah, that one I can't say for sure, but apparently there's two versions. There's a public version of the Minnesota Iceman that was a fabrication, and legendarily there's a true original version,
right?
That may be out there or.
But
somewhere.
That's just kind of my point,
No, I'm not saying you can't be right.
If somebody says, "Well, I've got this," I mean, it's like what was his name? The guy who supposedly shot a juvenile Bigfoot
yeah, I know.
So I mean, but Peter Kane, yeah, that's the name. Yeah. But that's my point. Is even if you have a body, they're so rare, so uniquely rare that I don't think anybody would really believe you, especially because you don't want to send it out to a governmental facility to have it tested.
Yeah, well,
you don't want to let that thing go.
No, that would be foolish for sure. So, chances are you're not going to see it again if there really is some sort of some form of official cover up. Then you don't want to release it that way. You'd have to go a whole different route if you wanted to bring that out to the public. But I don't know. It's just a strange one. And the thing is that I believe people are seeing something. I just don't understand how come, or what's the part we don't know about this, where these large cryptids can be flying around in our areas and be seen very clearly. Many of the people that have seen them have seen them very close, like disturbingly close, and then they're gone and they disappear. I think there's a bunch of those sightings coming out of Arizona, I believe.
Right.
And I don't understand it. It's like, well, again, I don't pretend to know, but that's one of those hard ones to get your head around. What's the X factors of these? What are where are they going? Where are they coming from? Are they do they belong somewhere else? And just are there natural portals that form and close all the time that defy space and time and just end up throwing weird things into our zone? And
right,
you don't know. I don't know, but just food for thought, ladies and gentlemen. So here's one for our lake monster lovers. And we don't cover a lot of this on the portal, but there isn't a lot to cover because what information is out there has been done to death, and I just don't want to repeat other people's shows over and over because there's a very limited amount of information in terms of like Nessie and other the large cryptids that allegedly live in these large lakes. There's not a lot of information out there, but let's hear what this one says because this is apparently somebody seeing one in Ontario. It says, I live next to Lake Ontario, and one day I was out for a walk with a friend along the pier and marina, and there were dozens of carp just hanging around chilling like carp do. And just the kind of lazily floating looking for food. And Well, I'm watching these fish because I love watching underwater creatures from above the surface. And suddenly, they all scatter like fast. Some with splashing, some without. And my first thought, of course, was either a predator or somebody jumped in the water, both of which I didn't see happen. About 20 minutes out, this thing crested the surface. It was pretty long and very dark, and slowly came to the surface and dove in one smooth motion. It rose again several meters and crested in the same way. And I remember thinking that there was something very odd about this shape this time, as if it was thicker now than the first time. And I later realized that it could have been very long, and I was seeing two separate parts of the body. I still don't know what I saw. My friend said it was a log or a fish, and really isn't open to the idea that it was something unexplained. Yeah, it's tough. I mean, and that's most of the sightings. Most of the sightings of these creatures are literally these few-second glimpses and then nothing. So now apparently there's some news coming out of Loch Ness from a geneticist that did a bunch of genetic testing all over in the Loch Ness looking for any anomalies, and he's got some surprising news that's going to come out, but I don't think it's going to be released until like August or maybe September. I don't know when he's going to actually break it out, but I've been anxiously waiting to hear what he's found.
Is that what I was talking about? The remember I brought it up. Never mind.
What was it?
Well, it was a story about somebody getting these ripples and these seven fins in Loch Ness. No, it wasn't Loch Ness. But there was a guy that says, no, that's not what's happening here. And do you remember me reading that? It was probably about a month and a half, 2 months ago.
I remember.
He said, well, wait, I've got some stuff coming out.
Yes,
somebody was talking
that
about
was
that.
the reference to that person.
Yeah, okay.
But
All
they
right.
haven't broke their news yet.
Yeah,
so.
not that I've seen.
No, and it's not going to be broken until August or September, I think is what I recall. So, but very weird. All right, so here's a large dark dog in Ohio, and ladies and gentlemen, if you're new to the show, you're going to hear a lot about Ohio. Ohio's got a lot going on there for paranormal. It says, my girlfriend and I saw a black dog in rural Ohio. It charged at us while we were sitting in my backyard, which is surrounded by cornfields. Right at the last second, it veered off and ran right past us, and we watched it seemingly vanish. It was around 1 a.m. and a full moon that was so bright you could see everything clearly. It was much larger than the biggest dogs I've ever seen, on all fours, easily was at chest level. On all four, easily it was at chest level. Wow. So I don't know how tall this person is, but its legs moved like a dog's when it ran, except that it seemed like it glided over the ground. It was an eerily quiet night, and it made not even the faintest sound the entire time. Mm-hmm. Something that large would have made a sound off the ground, or at least breathing sound or something. It ran directly at us and in front of us, probably about 10 feet, and didn't make any noise. It had incredibly black fur and was unnaturally dark. The next day, I found out that my great aunt passed away.
Wow.
Around the same time that night in the hospital. We still try and just tell each other that it was a black bear or a large dog, but we both know that it wasn't. There you go. Now, earlier in the show, I was mentioning that this show was going to be about cryptids, and I think Duck Sauce asked, does that include fairies and elves and stuff like that? And that's a good question. Normally, I wouldn't equate cryptids with fairies and elves and stuff, but it is an unproven species as far as scientifically, by scientific measures. So, could it? Yeah, it could, I guess. I don't know. I don't usually hear them grouped together, but interestingly enough, here's a story about fairies in Western France. So I know it sounds stupid, and I think there's a logical explanation for what we saw, but I just don't have it yet. It happened only once, 7 years ago during the day, spring or summer. I was at my parents' new house in Western France in the country, and I was talking with my mom, And we were sitting on the sofa next to the window, and then I watched a creature flying from that window to the one in the next room. It only lasted 2 or 3 seconds, but I saw it clearly. It was the size of a bird, smaller than a pigeon, and it was dark brown. I assumed it seemed to have small wings, 1 or 2 pairs. It was thin and shaped like a human. I looked at my mom, asked her if she saw it too, and she said yes. And I asked her what she thought it was, and she said she didn't know, but that she didn't want to talk about it anymore. I know it sounds crazy, and I would not believe that story if I hadn't seen the little thing with my own eyes. So there you have it. There's a fairy story for you. Now, I love those stories. I really do, and it sounds kind of flaky maybe to some people, but you know, the legends and lores around fairies have been around for thousands of years, and they persist. And obviously, still people are reporting seeing these things.
Right.
So, is there little winged beings out there that we understand as fairies? I think so. I think there is. I don't know what they are. I don't know that they're a physical thing. They might be a spiritual thing, but they're obviously some form of nature spirit anyway. But they are out there apparently, ladies and gentlemen, and what they want, what they do, I don't know. I'll leave that to the legends to decide. But
the legends,
yeah,
definitely that. You know, it's one of those. Well, and I was going to say before you got into it, you know, Robin Moonshadow from Strange Realms. You know, she talks about little people and how they are cryptids, but she doesn't go into fairies and dryads and things like that because they're not in that strict sense of little people and proto pygmies.
Right.
They don't fall into that category because of the size difference. There's like a difference between a brick and a tile is like 1/8 of an inch. Or 1/16 of an inch, actually. But anyhow, the point is that it's not fairies and things like that are separate from gnomes and puckwudgies and you know chiricons and everything. You know, so you know maybe
clericons,
the drunk ones.
Yeah, clericons.
Yeah. So, but anyhow, the point is that you know just do they fall in as a cryptid? I would say yes, but just not into like the little people cryptid or the proto-pygmy type cryptid.
Sure.
You know, so I don't know.
But if they're spirit, then they wouldn't be cryptid.
Then they would be supernatural.
Right. And that's a whole different thing in my mind. But.
Right, because then you can get into angels with that.
Okay, we got a call or two here, so let's get to the first call. This is area code 423. You're on the air.
Hey, guys.
Hey. Who are we talking to tonight?
Hey, it's Duck Sauce.
Oh, Duck Sauce. How are you?
Hey, good to hear from you, brother.
I'm good.
Good.
I apologize. I am really tired, and I had to really think hard on whether I wanted to call or not.
Uh-huh.
But I have a story to share with you that goes into the fairies and the dwarves and the brownies and the pixies.
Oh, cool.
An experience that I had in Florida 25 years ago.
Fantastic.
Are you guys going to be going to break soon? Do I have a few minutes?
Oh, we don't have breaks on
Wednesdays. We don't do breaks
on
Wednesdays, so you're good to go.
Right on. Okay. All right. So, 25 years ago, is a state park in Florida. I'm sitting here racking my brain trying to remember what the name is, and I don't remember, but it's all right. It's this state park. It runs along a river right near Tampa. And back then, a lot of mushrooms. Used to do a lot of mushrooms. In fact, we had a family gathering at this particular incident. This is going to be a drug story. It's going to be about the point of the show.
Okay.
We ate so much mushrooms. We had mushrooms on hamburgers, avocado and mushroom cap sandwiches. We put it in the potato salad. Way out there. So I go walking, all right, way off on the trip, and I go walking along the river. I'm walking along this trail, and I'm inside my head. I'm tripping along. I'm walking along the trail. I keep going. I must have got, I don't know, probably a quarter of a mile. I keep walking until there is no more trail. Now I'm cutting the trail. It way out there.
Okay.
And I come to this place, and the water down there is really, really dark, really black. And I guess I needed a break or something, and I stopped. next to the river, and I'm just kind of standing there staring into this. It's darker than coffee. I don't know. It's just really this infinite blackness I'm staring at into the river, and I'm thinking to myself, and again, this is 25 years ago. I can still remember it quite clearly.
Okay.
I'm thinking to myself, wow, man, remember I love mushrooms. I'm like, wow, man, I could just kind of fall like face first into this river and just drift off into this infinite blackness, this infinity that is forever, right? That's the state of mind I'm in, and I guess I don't know how long I stood there, but I needed to sit down, I suppose, not because I was weirding out. It was all very, very peaceful. That's the nature of a mushroom trip. It's very natural and very, very, I don't know, natural is the only word I can use to describe it. So I look around, and again, I'm way off the beaten trail. I look behind me, there's this oak tree, like this huge oak tree, and impossibly the roots were partially exposed right next to the river bank in a way that it made it was a throne, it was a seat, it was perfectly fashioned, impossible. It was the most bizarre thing. So I'm like, yeah, all right, man, that's perfect. I sit down, had armrests and everything. It was really cool. And I look around me, and I look down, and I saw these, what I'm calling brownies. They were I don't know, 3/4, maybe not half an inch, I don't know, and half an inch tall probably. And they were kind of walking in like this worker fashion. They were just doing worker things. I don't know what they were doing. They were just doing worker things, nature worker things. And about the time I noticed them and really kind of took them in, I think I looked up and I saw these little floaty type things, and I looked closely at these floaty type things. Remember, I'm on a head full of mushrooms here. I'm looking closely at these floaty things and their energy, their aura, I look really close, and it's like almost looking into a light, but not. And there's a body in there. There's a figure. There's arms. There's legs. I think I swear to you, and this is not a joke, I think they were wearing boots. I really do. The Ozzy song "Fairies Wear Boots." Anyway, I really think they were wearing boots.
Okay.
So I remember acknowledging all this. And it wasn't until just earlier tonight, for 25 years, that was the explanation. That's what I saw. I saw the little worker brownies or dwarves, whatever they were, and the little fairy things. Earlier tonight, it occurred to me what I may have seen. It's quite possible that I saw ants. And I don't mean this as a joke. I mean this quite literally. That I saw ants, and they were quite possibly how ants can cut leaves into like these little squares and such, and they'll carry these leaves. And these fairies that I saw could have quite possibly been a flying insect of some sort that was, native to there. I don't know. It could have been some sort of a moth. It could have been a mosquito. I'm not sure. Again, I was seeing things on an energetic level, and this is the point. I was seeing things on an energetic level, so I saw them as such.
Oh, okay.
To someone not of the same mindset, they may have simply seen ants and moths or mosquitoes or whatnots. So therein lies the question: Do they have two forms? Is there, even to the point of Sasquatches and other things, are there an energetic form and a physical form?
Right.
Now, if I do have one more moment, this kind of ties into this in almost a humorous sort of way, but I kid you not, it changed my life. I had a dream one night, and it was almost a comical kind of dream. It was almost like a comic, but I woke up in a cold sweat. It changed my life. Here was the dream. I had this dream that I had died, and I was at the pearly gates, and St. Peter was sitting at the pearly gates. He was at his desk, and I come walking up, and he looks up at me, and a big grin, right? He doesn't need to know. He knows why I'm there. Big grin. He's like, yeah, no, absolutely. No, you definitely come right in. Just as soon as you answer to those guys. And he looks up, and there's like these 50-foot caricatures of every bug or insect I had maliciously squished as a teenager in my life.
Right.
Oh.
I woke up in a cold sweat. True story. Since then, I don't kill insects. If a spider shows up in my living room, I get a broom. I take my time. As gently as I can, I escort him outside. The same thing with there's been times I've accidentally stepped on a bug and literally apologized.
Aw, well, that's cool.
Not in a fear way. It wasn't in a fear way. It changed my outlook on how I look at other living things, even down to the point of an ant, a frog, a grasshopper, whatever. Now, if they bite me first, that's fair game. Right? The flea bites me, mosquito bites me. That's fair game. That's okay. That's not what we're talking about here.
Sure.
So I don't know. Couple of thoughts on that. Again, I'm rambling. I've been smoking a little. I'm very tired, so I apologize for the rambling, but that's my stories.
Well, I appreciate it, brother. Thanks for sharing them, and it's really interesting. I think you're right that the change of perception due to the chemicals could be very profound, and it may actually illustrate part of what some other people are seeing in their natural states. Just that energy.
Yeah, absolutely.
So very cool. Thanks again for calling in. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. You guys have a great night. I'll continue watching.
All right,
thanks.
We'll talk later.
Excellent. Now I want to read this one to make sure that we get it in time. But I'm reading this because this reminds me a lot of a recent confessionals episode that blew my mind, and it's something I've never heard of before, but I see it mentioned here, and so Tony Merkel, if you're out there listening, or you as well, Wes, you can appreciate this as well, and you'll have to check out the confessionals and to hear the whole episode. But very, very bizarre, and here's a reference to that. That I've never seen before, and I had never heard of before I heard the confessionals, but I find it interesting that I'm finding a reference of it now again. So let me read this for you guys, and you can see what you think. I'm not sure what it would be, but I can describe like it was yesterday. I was about 13 or 14. I was at my cousin's house, and we were playing hide and seek outside. He lived in the more woodsy part of northeastern Ohio. His house had a creek that ran down one side of his property, and the driveway was on the opposite side of the house. And it was getting dark, and I was the one searching, and I heard leaves crumpling. And when I turned to look, I saw what looked like a deer on its hind legs. I clearly remember seeing dog legs running, but the rest of the body was straight up, and it ran with incredible speed. And I knew it wasn't either of my cousins hiding. I ran as fast as I could back to the house, and one of my cousins was running in as well. He saw the same thing. It still creeps me out to this day because my uncle always told us how he saw weird things on that property. Wow. So that one's going out to you, Tony, and you, Wes, as well, if you guys are listening. That's only the second time in all of my years of looking at cryptid stuff and paranormal stuff online. This is only the second reference I've ever heard of bipedal deer that seem to have dog legs. So.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah,
that's kind of like one of those ones that's one of those ones I can't wrap my head around.
Right, but this is two sources seeing the same thing, and to me, what that demonstrates is a continuity, and it's also a reinforcement of the idea that could there be some form of bipedal ungulate out there? I don't know. The one from Tony's confessional story was real intense, and I'm not going to try to nutshell that. You'll have to go check out the episode.
Yeah, you got to check that one out.
But it's really, really interesting. And I wish I could remember which episode that was.
Was that which was the one that he put on with the 4th of July show that he did?
No, not that one.
Not that one?
No.
It was right before then.
Yeah, it was. It was right before them.
I'll see if I can find it.
Yeah, if you can dig up which one it was, but yeah, it's really bizarre, and that's the second time I've seen that reference. So, but let me get to our last call that's on the board, and we'll see what's going on with Miss Diane. How you doing?
Hey, Hey.
Hey,
Uh,
are you there?
so, now I hope I can remember what I called about. There a little while. Anyway, it was all interesting, though. It was all really interesting.
Oh, cool.
You go up with today, you're in for a big surprise. Well, it might be a really big surprise.
Yeah.
Like 8 feet or so.
Right.
But, yeah, I have been out in the woods, and I just happened to think we had a place, I don't know, and since a lot of Ohio is this special place, we're so blessed with, all kinds of things here.
Right. Yeah.
If you want to call it blessed.
Sure.
I keep thinking I should get myself an RV, a camera, and a Wi-Fi that service for my tab, and just go out and start recording whatever comes up. But I could go out at any time too, and just point for a while. Just point my camera at the skies and come up with something weird up there. So I could probably go out in the woods and do something similar. But I did. I got to tell you, there was a place around here, and they called it Rogues Hollow, but now it is a park area more. It was near a prison for a while. Not a prison,
Okay.
detention, something. Anyway, and somebody was camping out that way, and they were telling me that in the middle of the night, they hear something walking through their tent, turn on the light, and see this deer with a man's face
Oh.
walking through their tent, like passing through it, not just passing through, but actually going right through the tent. So, which scared the living daylights out of them, and they never camped down that way again.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also a couple areas down that way, and we used to call one of them the Sacred Soccer Field. It runs. These parks are right on the river. They're part of the Emerald Necklace. So we've got tons of these all up and down the river.
Uh-huh.
And I'm sure that at one time all of them had some significance. We've got one that's the big signal tree down there where the Indians used it for a marker to cross between rivers. And unfortunately, it's dying now. They kind of separated it from all the other trees, and it's been hit by lightning, and all kinds of things have happened to it. And I'm afraid we're going to be losing that tree. They say it's 300 years old, and I say it's probably got to be a lot more than that, because you cannot hug this tree all the way. You need several people to hug this tree. It's got to be one of the oldest trees in the area, which is way more than 300.
Sure.
But down there we had a place, and it was really interesting near there. We called it the Sacred Soccer Field because they had built a soccer field, and the ring, the circle, was situated almost exactly on some kind of a vortex. And we used to go down there when I at one time belonged to several metaphysical societies. And some of us would go down there, and we'd do our ceremonies down there, and the park rangers got used to us. They just figure we'd be down there doing that, and then when we'd see the lights, we'd pile in the, coming down at night, coming down the road, we'd pile in the car and get ourselves out of there and head on out, and then they were happy with that. I mean, they kind of got used to us being there. But at night, it would be very strange to watch how the place would breathe. It was like the fog, but the fog would roll in, and it looked like it was breathing this area. And a lot of strange things would happen in that foggy area down there. And I know a lot of people saw a lot of things. I mean, we had little lights show up. We had we would hear, unfortunately, in the background, things getting killed. There was something that was a predator down there that was stalking things. It wasn't coming anywhere near us, but we'd hear it in the distance. And we were also near a bird sanctuary. And I remember the time a red-tailed hawk came up and ate lunch with us.
Oh.
It's a very special place, you know.
Uh-huh.
But if there are still some cryptids around here somewhere, I bet somewhere down there they're hiding, because there would be a lot of places to hide down there, even though there's civilization all over the place. There would be places to hide down there.
Wow. Yeah, that sounds like a pretty hot spot for sure.
Yeah, because I mean, you know, we would see stuff that was weird in the fog, and you know, in the fog you get a lot of indistinct shapes and stuff. But I would sit there, and sometimes in my head I would see a bunch of Native American spirits, or I would see. I heard one time something that sounded like, for all the world, like some small creature, some small being cursing us out for being probably too close to wherever it is. In some language I couldn't understand.
Oh, okay.
And one time I remember I went down there and I started to try to talk to somebody, and I couldn't speak English anymore.
Oh, you got glamoured.
So
you got glamoured.
Yeah, I couldn't speak English. It was weird. I'm like, I'm trying to talk, and they're looking at me, and I realize I'm not speaking English, and they're like, okay.
Either you got glamoured or you had a stroke. One of the two.
Happens to
I don't
us all
think
the
I
time.
had a stroke, because I seem to be okay otherwise.
Well, that's good. Yeah.
And then after I left the area, I was, after a little while I was fine, but it was like at first I was just speaking in tongues or something.
Uh-huh.
And
wow.
and that was weird, and yeah. And then there was one time that I'd been down this trail in the dark like a million times, but I was there with another person that had never been there.
Uh-huh.
And it was getting dark, and I was like, oh, we could take a short walk around. But there was something that was just saying, no way. And I finally figured out it wasn't me, because they were used to me. It was him. It was him that they didn't want anywhere near there. So there are also, I suspect, and I would need somebody else to go down there. Now, I would never be able to, I wouldn't, in my current state of fitness, be able to go down on this trail again, which I used to go down. Mm-hmm. At one time, I led people walking up and down the Cuyahoga River for, you know, fun and exercise, but there was underneath the metal bridge. We had a metal bridge, which was the weirdest thing that, you know, it was, many accidents occurred off that metal bridge and down by the Mary Campbell Cave area. And we went farther, you know, under the bridge. But way under there, I look at these monolithic structures, and I got to a point, now I look at the monolithic structures in the videos. And we got to this one point where all of a sudden we're under the bridge, and well, it's kind of creepy because it makes a noise, right? The bridge kind of whines because it was they paved it now, but it was metal, and the wind would go through there and make a funny noise all the time. And cars going over it would vibrate it and stuff. But I'm looking at the base of this thing, and I think we may have built that on a megalith. I think we may have a megalithic structure down there. I'd have to have somebody else check it out. But I recall going past this humongous stone structure that this was built on, and it didn't look like it. And they were trying to say, well, it was just a stone, a quarried stone, but I got a feeling every time I went by there that no, that was at one time a structure.
Wow.
That was actually a structure at one time. And it was a big, and the edges were too smooth. There was something about it. The edges were just too smooth for that kind of stone. And I just got the weirdest feeling from that place.
Well,
so it wasn't just,
Right. Well, thanks for calling in and telling us about these things. That's really cool. I appreciate hearing from you.
Okay. It kind of sounds like you're waiting for me to kind of finally finish, and I'm just saying, okay, got any? Well, I got a question for you.
Sure.
First.
Okay.
Okay. Has anybody got any ideas about this? Please let me know, because I had this very intense dream, and I'm finally starting to have dreams now that I've been taking the CBD oil for a little while.
Okay.
I am having dreams again, which for a while I wasn't dreaming much.
Okay.
But they're very intense. And this one was somebody on a stairway. I'm on a stairway, and there is somebody stalking me who is killing people by stabbing them in the back with broken thermometers. And they're dying of mercury poisoning. And he's threatening me. And I just put this video out about Mercury retrograde, okay? So I know Mercury is kind of on my mind. It must have something to do with the Mercury. Sure. But then, in order to get away from him, I'm down somewhere down there and trying to even, roll down this gully area to get away from this guy. So if anybody has any ideas what that dream is about, I don't know. But it just brought up all of these memories of being... Oh, and then did I tell you about the time that I all of a sudden had this pain in my back and got... I think I did tell you at some point about there had been a fair down there. There had been some kind of an amusement park down there, but I didn't know that until later. Oh, I guess I'll save that story for another time. You probably have... All right. I'll leave you hanging for that one, okay?
All right, my lady.
But there's all kinds of things down there. So anyway, if you're down in the woods, you might find anything here in Ohio. Okay, see you.
All right, we'll talk to you soon, my lady.
Well, I was talking...
Okay, check out my channel for that video on Mercury retrograde and quit asking me.
All right,
Sounds
Dee.
great. What were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say... Paisley was telling me that they found some kind of a large structure or something. She specifically said pyramid, south of St. Louis or something like that.
Oh.
So so it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, if it is in fact, some kind of a pyramid or a mound or something like that, then maybe there is some fact to what Dee was saying about the bridge on the megalith.
On the megalith,
yeah.
Well, remember, and we've talked about it many times on the show, but it's like the London Hammer, 300 million year old rock encasing a hammerhead, an iron hammerhead, and part of the handle. The handle's so old, the wood is so old that it's both turning petrified and charcoal.
Yep.
So something was here before we were here. In this, at least in this continent, probably worldwide, but something has happened that we haven't been taught. And there was something going on in the continent of North America,
right,
long before anybody came here. Possibly the First Nations people would be the only ones that have a histories about it, and they talk about many cultures that existed before the white people ever came here. So it's hard to say, but I wanted to make sure to close with one more. I just really like that bipedal deer thing. That's really got me kind of wilded out.
And I posted that confessionals in there, so
I saw that. Yeah, good job, and thank you for looking that up, and thank you, Asher.
Asher,
for pointing out which episode it was. We appreciate that.
I was right on it when he said it. I was like, yep, okay, confirmation.
Okay. Yep, there it is. But there's one more, and it has to do with a gnome kind of creature in Mexico. All right, and this happened to me and my little brother and cousin, and I was about 14 years old, and it was around dusk. And we decided to go play basketball in the outside courts. It was still daylight when we first got there, and We usually start heading home about dusk or when the court lights come on, and that was only a few blocks away from our grandmother's house. When the lights come on, it's usually when the bigger kids get the court to play, but this time we were fortunate enough to have the whole court to ourselves. We were shooting hoops like normal, nothing out of the ordinary, and the lights came on, but we were having fun anyway, and the game was 21, so two of us would stand to the side of the hoop depending on which direction the ball would go, so it wouldn't roll to the street. On one of the shots that my cousin made, the ball just missed the hoop and bounced behind it. I managed to grab it before leaving the court when I saw this strange creature. It was like a little person, no bigger than 2 feet tall, but it had the face of an old man with a fairly large nose, old ragged clothes that looked like they were handmade, and a hat, something like a garden gnome would wear, one of those pointy hats, but it wasn't straight up. It hung down to the side. And it was crouched down, almost like in hiding, and when I got too close to it, that's when it stood up, looked at me, and ran away from me. Believe me, my first thought was not to chase it. I was scared, stiff. But my cousin and little brother saw it too and ran. When it ran, it was heading for the other side of the court, and I couldn't believe the speed of it for this little thing to be this small, and it made it to the other side in mere seconds, almost in the blink of an eye. It ran behind the post, and it was gone. I snapped out of it and started to run home as well. As I ran past the same post, this thing ran behind. I turned to look to see if it was still there, but it was gone. When I got home, my little brother and cousin had already told the adults what had happened, and they told us that these creatures are called duendes.
Duende.
Yep, duendes, ladies and gentlemen. So, very cool. I hope you enjoyed this.
Yeah.
Very cool. And that's about wrapping us up, don't you think, Don?
Yeah, I think so. I just want to say a quick couple things.
Please.
Don't forget, Paisley follows us on TFR, and she live streams on YouTube on Friday and Saturday. And also, good luck, Carl. You will be in my mind and my heart when I go to Walmart myself and brave those Walmartians.
Well, there you go. And I guess the wall Martians. I like that. I'd never heard that before, but
Really?
I never have. I lead a very sheltered lifestyle. I don't get out too much. If it ain't paranormal, I don't know much about it. So. But anyway, guys, we hope you enjoyed the show. Thank you to all of you who are here. We got 60 people right now watching.
Yeah,
so
we've been.
that's fantastic.
Impressive.
We are absolutely thrilled you guys found us. I hope you enjoyed the show. If not, blame Don.
What? It's not my fault.
It might be. We
My
just don't
head
know.
looks narrow without my headset on.
Yeah, it's really weird how much this makes our heads look fat. But does this make my head look fat?
Remember, the camera adds 10 pounds, or in our case, 20 or 30.
We got a lot of real estate cooking here in the studio. That's all I'm going to say. But
If only I was Italian.
I don't understand the reference.
Because women love Italian men, large Italian men.
Well, there is that.
It's like on a grater handle.
Well, yeah.
Or at least that's what they say in the movies.
Okay. Gotcha. Well, more to love. That's all I'm saying. But thank you so much, guys, for being here, being a part of the show. And thank you to all our callers tonight. It's always wonderful to hear from you guys. Thank you, Carrie, for calling in and being a part of the show. It was really wonderful to hear from you as well, brother. And again, if you are not familiar with it, please check out Bigfoot Odyssey on YouTube, and you'll find some great episodes. They do a fantastic job. So, but that's all for us tonight. We love you all. Be good, be kind, be nice. Take care of each other. Help each other out. Find the magic in every day. And remember to laugh as much as you can. I'll be back tomorrow night with another bedtime story, which is the shorter version of the shows. And then Friday and Saturday are the 2-hour shows. So hopefully we'll have lots of fun cooked up for you guys for then, too. So Don will be back on Saturday, right, Don?
That's true. That's my plan.
That's your plan. I'm going to make you hold to it because I need you.
All right.
You complete me.
Oh, it's hearts.
All right, guys. We love you guys, and have a great night.
See ya.